Hello everyone, Ray from Texas Survival School. I want to do a quick video this morning on one of the things that we get a lot of questions on for people who are coming into the basic wilderness survival class. And it's all around the gear and the types of things that they can, are expected to bring for class. So we're going to go through the list of required items that show up on the website and maybe talk about a couple optional items at the end here. So we'll dive in real fast. Hopefully this will answer some questions for you. Okay, so let's knock off one of the easy ones first. One of the very first things on the list is going to be a backpack. Honestly, you're not going to be backpacking anywhere with this. The only reason we're asking for you to bring some sort of pack, and there's no magic answer as to what the pack needs to look like. It's literally just to organize your gear to help get it from wherever you park out to the actual location where you're going to be camping at. And the location, if you've watched the location video, the walkthrough here, you'll see that everything's really close together at this one particular class location, and there are cart paths, and that's because we have pull carts out there for you to get stuff there, but it's just so that you're not carrying everything piecemeal out there. So just some sort of backpack to organize your gear. Second item that's easy to kind of knock off are the hiking boots. You're not going to, like I said, you're not going to be doing a ton of hiking in this class. You may walk over the course of the entire weekend a couple of miles total, but that's just sort of around the property. You're not doing this in one clip. That's over the extent of the entire weekend. The biggest thing is we just want you to have closed-toed shoes on. It does not have to be hiking boots. Sneakers will be fine. We just don't want people out there with flip-flops and sandals and that type of thing, because you're not, you can be out in the grass, and we don't want foot injuries and things like that if they're unnecessary. Next on the list, weather appropriate clothing. Obviously, if it's cold, wear warm stuff. If it's hot outside, wear cool stuff. Bring options though, because sometimes it can be warm during the day and get pretty cool at night. Also, if it's bring something in case it rains. We don't stop class for inclement weather. We may move locations and try to get under cover, but survival doesn't happen when it's sunny and 75, so be prepared. Just be sure to pack lots of options. Okay, so probably hands down the item that we get asked about the most is the water container. I know on the website it says a cook pot with a nesting cup. I'll show you here what we're talking about with that, but there is no magic. You do not have to have the nesting cup. We're predominantly worried about the metal container. If you have something like this will work perfectly fine. This is just a clean canteen. This works perfectly fine. Whatever you bring, just keep in mind it's going to go into the fire. So we're going to use this throughout class, so it's not going to stay looking like this. Actually, this is a brand new one. Mine is a completely different color where it's set many hours in the fire at this point. So something like this will work. Even something like this will work. It's just a little athletic bottle. This will be perfectly fine. But the ones that we're talking about, and I'm going to actually give you guys links to a lot of these products down in the bottom in the description. But the other one that we're talking about is this little Stanley cook kit. This is the one with the nesting cups. Again, we're not using the nesting cups. These can be bought on Amazon. Again, I'll throw a link in the bottom. Walmart. You can usually pick them up in the camping section. And it's just a little individual pot. And again, we're worried about the pot, not the nesting cups. These are usually about 15 bucks, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood. Occasionally we have these for sale at the school if you don't find one though. Okay, next item, the Ferro Rod, or Ferro Rod, depends on how you want to call it. Ferro Rod, you can find these things. A lot of the big box stores will have them in some form or fashion. They're going to look like this. You can absolutely make this work. There's nothing wrong with this. I can tell you, starting out, the bigger the better. You'll get much more purchase off of something like this than something like this, especially if you're bringing a kid with you. The kids will have a harder time with this than they will with something a little bit larger. So you may want to skip the big box. This is in the end of my knife or in some kit that I bought, and reach out and actually grab something that's a little bit bigger. We do always have these at the school, just in case you can't find one. Yeah, it's one of these things in this regard. Size definitely matters. As you'll just get you'll get more purchase and get bigger sparks with this than you will with this. A lot of other options out there, but for what it's worth. Another nice simple one, lighter, matches. There's nothing special that you have to have with these. Most people end up with lighters. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw someone actually show up with matches, unless they were the little lifeboat matches. Actually, hang on, I think I've got some of those. Yeah, there's some, unless you show it with like the little UCO or even Zippo makes some, the little lifeboat matches. Predominantly, it's just someone showing up with, you know, a big deflick. And those will be perfectly fine. Nothing extravagant that you need with these. Just lighter matches, just something lighter playing with. Okay, out of the entirety of the list, this next item, the magnifying glass, this is the least important one, because this is one of these that we use it when we have an opportunity to use it, but there's a lot of times that we don't get a chance to. It's a magnifying glass. Just about anything will work. This is the one that I carry. It's actually a little dust cover. I think I found this at Lowe's or Home Depot. Kind of creepy there, looking through there. Just simple magnifying glass. Obviously, we're using this to light fires. It's very often, though, that we do make it all the way through the fire portion of the lesson and we do not get to using the magnifying glass. It may be cloud cover, the sun may be in a bad spot and we have too much shade with the trees on, or the actual fire lesson may have taken longer than what we have planned for it and we didn't get to this piece of it. So it's not uncommon that we don't use this. Definitely do bring it if you want to get into it, because there's sometimes that even though we didn't get to it, we'll jump out, you know, a handful of us and go to the other side of the property during a break, and we will use it. So, optional item. Next up for discussion, 2 cotton bandanas. You can also substitute a shema for this. Actually, I didn't bring my shema in here. Oh well. 2 cotton bandanas. We're going to use this during the first aid portion and actually a couple other sections. Nothing robust, nothing crazy, just a pair of plain Jane cotton bandanas. So, hopefully, we got a couple of those laying around. Okay, next up on the list is the 10x10 tarp, and do definitely try to stick with a 10x10. If you have to go slightly different size, try to make sure it's at least square, because you'll have some more options that'll line up more with what we're doing. If it is square, it doesn't mean you can't make the others work. This will just be ideal, and it does not have to be it does not have to be some elaborate, really expensive tarp that you get from like really expensive inventory here. This is one that I use, but I use it quite often. You're welcome to use something like this. You're going to see us using stuff like this. More often than not, you're actually going to see us using something like this, which is the AquaQuest tarps. These things are really durable. And I'll throw links to some of this stuff on the bottom again, but something like this, just the plain Jane, super cheap from Lowe's or Walmart or Home Depot, fold up kind of crinkly tarps. You'll be perfectly fine with this. This is what the vast majority of people show up with, at least starting out of the gate. We don't want you guys to have to spend a bunch of money coming in here. We want you to learn about the gear, learn about the techniques, and then decide sort of from a gear perspective where you want to spend your money, where you don't want to spend your money. So if you don't have something already, just go for something cheap for this weekend, and then we'll go from there. Okay, next up is cordage. We've talked about bank line and paracord on the website. Paracord is going to look something like this. It's going to be a little spool. You're going to see this more often than not, and this is probably going to be easier for you to learn tying knots with when you're actually doing tie-up stuff. Bank line, talk about that for a second. This is not bank line. If you show up with this, you're going to have a harder time with this from like a knot tying perspective. It's just a little clunkier, a little harder to keep your hands on. If you're looking for specifically bank line because you don't want paracord, you want to be sure on there, whichever brand you buy, that it actually says tarred. This is going to be a lot better. And it's just, again, it's just a spool just like this, but it does have a tarring effect to it. So if you smell it, you can definitely tell if it's tarred, and it should be listed on there. More often than not, you find this in like the fishing sections of the big box stores. I ordered off Amazon more often than not. It's just it seems to be a little easier to get on there. Okay, the next area we get a lot of questions on, the compass. So I'll walk through real fast here. Okay, so this is the military Kamanga tritium compass. This is a perfectly good compass to bring. A lot of us carry these compasses. A lot of us use these compasses on a per trip basis. I really like this thing. It's downright indestructible. Pricier. But having said that, there's some really close options out there. This one I call the old man compass because it has a little peep sight in there. We have a lot of folks bring these to class too. These will work perfectly fine for what we're doing. It's nice thick metal, not nearly as indestructible as the Kamanga. This will work perfectly fine for this class. And whereas this is going to be 80, 100 bucks, this is more like 15. but this will be perfectly fine. Other compasses, so Sun2 MC2. This compass will work perfectly fine. Super good compass. I carry this in backpacking very often. Again, this is a $80-100 compass. Something like this, which is the Sun2. I think it's an A2 or A4. I'll put a link to it at the bottom. This is going to be perfectly fine as well. It's just a little map base plate compass. Super easy to use, and we're going to show you, regardless of, we're going to take you guys and divide you up into groups based on the style of compass that you bring, so you'll learn to use the compass that you bring. What we don't want, though, is please do not show up with this being your compass, this being your compass, or this being your compass. These are my examples of things that will get you killed. The reason we say don't bring these, you look on here, you don't actually have, I'm not sure if this is in focus or not, you don't actually have the degrees on there that you would see on these other ones. So you can tell if it's generally pointing north, east, west, or south, but you can't actually tell the bearing that's being measured. So stay away from these guys. So the next item up is just something to take some notes on. Nothing extravagant, nothing specific needed there. Just plain old plain pad and pen or pencil, whatever your preference is. Just something to take notes. We find that students, because the class is very content heavy, just like to take a lot of notes. So whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, next up on our list we've got tent stakes. Nothing specific on there. You can go to, whatever your shelter setup is, if it did not come with them, you can go to any of the big box stores and just grab a handful of tent stakes. There's nothing magical about which type you need. You just need a handful of these. We're going to use these for the shelter building portion. It just makes it a little easier for everyone. So, okay, so on Fridays and Saturdays we typically go until well after dark with class. So it is on our packing list to bring a headlamp, and any of the stuff will work. This is plain Jane, kind of ever ready headlamp. This is a Ozark Trail headlamp from, I think, Walmart. Actually, both of these came from Walmart. The night core headlamp. Any of this stuff works perfectly fine. The biggest thing about them is, one, make sure that they will tilt down and up so that they're not fixed in a straight out position, but then also make sure that you have a red light on there and you can cycle back through all of the other options. It's really only ask red light, because we're going to walk around with the red lights predominantly over the white light, and the tilt function, but any of that stuff will work well for you. I like this one because this one's rechargeable, so I can charge it off my battery pack, but if you do go with one of the other options, just be sure you've got some extra batteries with you just in case it runs out. Okay, aside from the cook kits, the area that we get the most questions on is the knife. We're pretty specific with the sizing and that it's a full tang knife from a requirement. Truthfully, you can get through with a folding knife in this class because you're not doing a lot of knife work, but there is some. We lean toward the full tang knife because one, if you do the second class, that's the knife that you'll be able to use going forward, as opposed to the folder you won't be able to use in the level 2 class, just from a functionality perspective. But also it's safer for you for a full tang knife. Now, you do not in any way, shape, form, or fashion have to go spend a ton of money on there. And the vast majority of the time when someone calls me and asks me what kind of knife do I need, I send them to this. This is the Mora Companion. You can usually grab these things off of Amazon for about $12 or $13. It's a nice, easy sort of starter knife. They're really, really durable. They come super sharp. I buy 3 or 4 of these things every year before class starts, and I'll use them throughout the class. And when I kind of start to wear them out, I'll move them to a kit and they get thrown in a bag somewhere, and then I'll grab a couple more for the next year. These are super, super easy. Doesn't have to be this though. Actually, there's another more option. This is a slightly cheaper version of the same knife. One's carbon and one's stainless, so I've got a couple options on those. Even something simple as like this small sort of neck knife, belt knife combo here. Even this would work perfectly fine. This one actually comes with a little Ferro Rod on here, but it doesn't want to stay clipped. There it goes. So this could be 2 birds with 1 stone. Ferro Rod's kind of small though for this class, but they do make some that have bigger options on there. Little BRS knives. These are relatively cheap. I think this is a $20 somewhere $20 to $25 knife for this. This would work perfectly fine if you have something like this laying around. This is the new school knife. We will have some of these probably, I assume at least most classes will have some of these out for sale, as long as we haven't picked over. Nice, heavy, robust knife. Obviously, we're spending a little more money on it, but just bring in something that you've got laying around the house. Hopefully, there's no rhyme or reason behind it. There's no specific requirement. We just need you to be able to cut some stuff. We do request that it's a fixed blade though, because it is safer for you to handle. Okay, optional gear. All right, so obviously bring other stuff to camp with. If you are, we've already talked about bringing tarps out. You still have to bring like your tent or your hammock or your other tarp to make your show if you're going to tarp camp. Bring additionals. We always have people come out there and they set their camp up with the stuff that's on the packing list, and they have to tear their camp down the next day so that they can actually participate in the class. So bring your normal camping stuff, whatever you need to be comfortable. This class is a comfortable class. They get more austere as you move through the class levels, but this one's very comfortable. So on that front, bring a chair, bring a cooler if you would like. Most people are going to have chairs, but from time to time we do have the people that show up and say, "Oh, I didn't know I could bring a chair." Bring a chair. You're welcome to bring real food. Bring a cooler. We're going to do most of our cooking over the campfire. You are welcome to bring little small propane grills if you want to do some of the cooking at your tent site or sort of off to the side and not over the campfire. What we can't have though is open flames at the tent sites. There's only one place for a fire. There are a couple little grill pits that you can use grills on in some pavilions, but it's only charcoal. So if you've got if you have a big group and you want to use one of those, and you can actually get in one of those because they're only a handful and they go quickly, you can bring some of that stuff if you'd like. Yeah, so typically camping chairs, camping stuff, chairs, coolers. Let's see. Okay, we do actually get a lot of questions as well on whether I should tent or can I hammock camp. Honestly, the vast majority of people bring tents. There are lots of flat spots out there. It's nice, easy, comfortable. We're all kind of used to throwing up tents. There are a very, very, very few select spots that you can put up a hammock on this campus. So you can bring one, but I would definitely plan to not be able to use it. Count yourself lucky if you can find a spot that you can use it. But plan to tent camp. If you want to try hammocking, there's a couple spots. If you get there early enough, you can get into one of those, but don't depend solely on that piece of it. Okay, hopefully this gives you a good idea of the gear items that you'll need through the basic wilderness survival class. Again, I'll put links down at the very bottom for you picking up some of the options for all of these off of Amazon. And if you have any questions, as always, you're always more than welcome to reach out to us just like normal. But I thought this may at least give you a head start on getting the shopping list done. We'll see you out there soon.